Alright, I think it's time to admit that I may have talked myself into believing that the Raptors this specific season were better than they actually were, because barring a historic collapse on the part of the 76ers, which I mean, Doc Rivers is on that side, you never know. But barring a historic collapse, it looks like the Raptors season is very close to being over. Now, I'm sure there'll be a decent amount of fighting from their side, with this series 3-0. I hope they don't get swept. I think they have enough willpower to at least avoid that. But this season is pretty much close to over. Now, I'm here to talk about why, despite, maybe the slightly unceremonious exit this year from the playoffs, when a lot of people, myself included, actually thought they might be able to pull off the upset here, I want to talk about why, in spite of that, the Raptors season this year should be celebrated as an overwhelming success. Now, before I get into things, just again, as usual, make sure you're leaving a like on the video. Helps out the algorithm a lot and I really appreciate it. And if you're new here, subscribe as well. Obviously, the 1K march that I always talk about. It's never ending, but I know we'll get there. Anyways, with all that being said, let's hop into the, full video. Yeah, let's hop in. Depending on who you are, I feel like it's easy to forget that a lot of pundits and experts expected the Raptors to be a rebuilding team this year. And by that, I'm talking like maybe a play-in team, like barely a play-in team, maybe firmly inside the lottery. Like a lot of people, obviously a lot of this is American outlets and the obvious bias there, but like a lot of these outlets really didn't expect that much from the Raptors. Hell, even for me, when I was making the preseason video where I was trying to predict the Raptors season and my final verdict was somewhere between the 6th to the 8th seed, there were even our own fans on here that were saying I was overestimating the Raptors' potential. And the funny thing was, I was actually underestimating, because obviously they didn't finish 6 to 8. They hopped into the 5 seed, into the middle of the Eastern Conference. And I just want you to think about how impressive that is, considering the injuries that the Raptors dealt with, obviously the imperfect personnel off the bench, and just some of the issues that the Raptors have had this season. Like, in spite of all of that, you had the Raptors finishing with the 5th seed, Pascal Siakam with a potential All-NBA season. We obviously know Freddie had an All-Star season, and then you had Scotty Barnes, potentially Rookie of the Year. We don't know the full result there, but even if he's not, Scotty Barnes being one of the best 2-3 rookies in this class, in a loaded, and I mean loaded rookie class, all of that is just reason to celebrate. Like, this Raptors team has done so much more this season than most expected, and with that being said, you can honestly say that they are ahead of schedule, probably from, again, where most people thought they would be, right? They're not a rebuilding team. They, are a retooling team, if you want to put it that way, where they literally took 1 year off from being a good team, went and got Scotty Barnes, and put themselves right back into the conversation with being a good team. Now, things are not all perfect, and I will obviously get to that eventually, but there's a lot of reason to celebrate this team. There's a lot of reason to be happy about this team, and there are still obviously a few question marks that you have to answer down the line eventually. But just while we're talking about reasons to celebrate, obviously I've touched upon some of those. I really extensively do want to hop into a little bit more of a conversation around Scotty Barnes. Now, in his very limited time on the court in this series, being the one game, sorry, I make very limited sound, smaller than it actually was, but my point here being, in what we saw of Scotty on the court in the playoffs, he was close to a triple-double in his playoff debut. Obviously, it would have been in a losing effort, but even still, Scotty, it just goes to illustrate my point that Scotty has given you a lot of reason to think he is going to be a star in this league for years and years to come, and I think that is quite probably the biggest point of celebration for the Raptors from this season. think Scotty Barnes, you got something special with him. You're going to want to develop that guy. And quite frankly, with one of the biggest glaring things that need to be discussed, which I will get into a little bit later, you might want to see if Scotty really is like your guy. I'm not describing it as well as I should. When I say like your guy, like obviously your superstar level talent, the guy that can take over games for you. Obviously we're talking about a rookie now, but going into the next season, the sophomore season, the year after that, like you want to figure out, is Scotty Barnes your star, your superstar, the guy that you're building your franchise around? Is he, that perfect complementary piece? Where is he in that like scaling? I think that's something you want to figure out. I think in general, obviously this team has a lot of young guys where you just want to figure out where they cap out as a pro. Obviously, OG Anunoby is somebody that has gotten better every season. He's also had some health issues, which are slightly concerning, but when he's on the court and playing, again, he just looks better and better every time. He looked really good in that game 3 against the 76ers, obviously despite the loss, but he looked good out there. So again, he's another one of those guys that you want to figure out what you got, because there's a lot of potential there. You can say the same of Gary Trent Jr. as well, that there's good potential, even though he's a little inconsistent. And honestly, the big one that I think has been such a pleasant surprise is watching how much better Precious Achiuwa has gotten better from the first game of the season to now. Damn. Just honestly, damn. Like, even like the things like his on-court awareness have come so damn far in such a short period of time. I think my original estimations, like, not even my original estimations, but just where I would have thought that Precious would be by the end of this year in terms of just, coming in as a fairly raw player to like where he is now, he's gotten so much better so quickly. And I think he has inserted himself as potentially a much bigger part of your future plans than maybe you originally anticipated. So another massive W. Like, there's a lot of reason to celebrate. There's a lot of good accomplishments for this team. And obviously you have one of the best head coaches in the league with Nick Nurse. Obviously he's had moments this series where things haven't panned out great, but he's still one of the best head coaches in the league. And miss me with all that talk about the Lakers. Why would Nick Nurse give up a good situation, a really good situation like the Raptors, for a dumpster fire, with all due respect, like the Lakers? And it's not even that I'm criticizing the on-court product this year, which I definitely am. Like, the on-court product for the Lakers this year was bad, but just the front office and the, I guess, culture that the Lakers have there. Like, how do you fire Frank Vogel, not outright tell him, and then catch him up a couple days later after media reports have already broken about him being fired? Like, I don't presume that I know what Nick Nurse is thinking, but if you're an NBA level head coach looking at how that was handled, very easy to look in the other direction and be like, nah bro, I'm good. So there's a lot to build upon here. Obviously Masai and Bobby are some of the best in the game as well. They're going to reorganize this roster to best position it to be successful, which brings me to my question of the things that the Raptors lack, right? And the things that they really need to really push themselves to the next level. Now, obviously, some of these issues are very fixable in terms of what can immediately be addressed. Like, if you're looking for another guard or somebody to like really kickstart your offense off the bench, I don't think that's a tough thing to fix. I think that is a guy you can go and get in free agency, whether that be by signing or by trade. You can find yourself a playmaker off the bench that can really kickstart that second unit and, not run your starters into the ground, as has kind of been the case at times this year. But the big one, I think, is sort of what I was alluding to a little bit before, but really the highlight here is just figuring out who is going to be your just go-to guy, right? And this isn't slander by any means, but obviously in these playoffs, in this series, Pascal hasn't looked great. Now, I still have a lot of love for Pascal. I think he's a fantastic player, and I think he can be a fantastic complementary number 2, but, proof in the pudding type of thing. Again and again, he just might not quite be a number one, which is fine. I don't take this as a, slander or anything like that. Like, there's a lot of great players that can't properly be that number one, which again, it's fine. Like, if you're asking Pascal to be a great number two option to somebody's number one, I think that is a fine role for him. And yeah, like, obviously Fred has played injured kind of with the second half this season, so it's a little hard to kind of dictate things for him, but he also just into that role wasn't really able to suffice in this series. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm taking too much away from this series, but again, like, these are things that you just have to consider. And basically the main question here is, who are you developing / potentially trading for that main star role? I will say, and obviously this is a easy one to get excited about and to look at, but there have been a fair amount of mock drafts that are, having Jaden Ivey go to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And if Ivy is potentially gonna, be added to that team, if the Thunder are ready to take calls about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I don't know about you guys, but I'm personally ready for the Raptors to make those calls. Not going to get into any of the potential packages there or stuff like that. Just saying, like, there are outside sources where you can look at, for potential go-to scorers when it comes to playoff time, which is obviously something that you're missing, and even not even just for playoff time, obviously for the regular season too, but especially for playoff time. Like, you can look at that kind of potential situation. You can look at one that I brought up earlier this season, Donovan Mitchell, who's about to get eliminated in the first round potentially by a Luka-less Mavericks team. You gotta think he's probably out of there this summer. So again, just plenty of options to kick, and obviously you're gonna have to potentially give somebody up. And I'm not even saying that's something that they should do. Well, I mean, I'm definitely not saying it's something that they shouldn't. All I'm saying is avenues like this are going to be explored probably in the offseason, because you have a fantastic core here and you have a team that's going to be really damn good, especially when some of these younger guys really start hitting, I'd say, their peak and their potential. Obviously, Scotty Barnes, think the world of him. I think he's got a very high ceiling. So how quickly, I guess, in the offseason this year do you want to jumpstart kind of your ascent? Is a question that needs to be asked. Or are you willing to kind of sit there patiently and keep letting these guys develop and seeing if maybe you get like a number one internally or something along those lines? Is it Scotty? Is it somebody else that's, maybe not painfully obvious right now? A lot of questions to be asked in terms of that regard, but shouldn't take away from the, I guess, feeling at the beginning here where this season is a win. This season is an absolute win. Obviously not figuratively, because in all likelihood, they're probably getting bounced by the Sixers in one of the next few upcoming games. But, man, for a team that was supposed to be in the lottery, in the back end of the play-in at the beginning of the year, whatever, a fifth seed and getting bounced by one of, the contenders in this conference, you take that. You definitely take that as a young team and as one of the youngest teams, in the league. That pretty much does it for me here today. I've seen a little bit of negativity, I think, around the end of the season that I wanted to, just do a video to remind, I guess, anybody that needs it that, hey, this is a good season. This is a damn good season for the Raptors. I know they were so solid at the end that, some of us, myself included, were convinced they might actually be able to do a little bit more damage than are likely going to end up doing this season. But this season is a win. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you agree. And hell, if you disagree, tell me why you don't think this season is a win. There's a comment section for it. I'd love to hear it. Other than that, usual drill that I mentioned at the beginning, I'll mention again. Like the video. It takes like a half second and it makes such a massive difference for me. So thank you. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel as well. It goes a long way in my heart and a long way in terms of my stability with YouTube and stuff like that. So thank you if you're subscribing. In general, hey, what's up? It's JJ Buckets. This was a fun one for me, just talking about the successes of the Raptors, and again, why this season should damn be celebrated, no matter how it ends, whether that be on, Saturday, whether that be on Monday. However the season ends, I think the Raptors deserve some kudos. And yeah, that's been me. It's been JJ Buckets. I will see everybody next time.